Hi, everybody. It is Kate Haley with Glazer's Camera. Welcome back. We're wrapping up our day today with a little street photography. We're going to work with Ian Jones, who is a Tamron ambassador, and I'm super excited for this one. I love street photography. When I travel and go to places like New York City or London or Dubai, street photography is one of my favorite genres to explore. So I'm super excited for this session. Before we dive into that, super quick, as always, that reminder of if you have questions while we're live, please get those posted in the chat room. We really want to hear from you from the session so we can have a little bit of conversation about the work and the stories that Ian is going to share with us today. With that said, I believe there are some Tamron promos available this weekend only. So feel free to come in or give the store a ring to see what those special offers are. All right. Ian, how are you doing?
Doing great. I'm excited to do this and get going and see if there's any good questions here tonight.
Exactly. Well, and like I said, I'm excited to see the work, the images that you sent us to kind of highlight the demo and the presentation. I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is going to be awesome. So
Good.
without further
glad.
ado, in your presentation, and forgot to ask you this earlier, do you have like a little bit of like your background, how you got started in this in your presentation?
I don't have that in my background, but I could, if you just ask, I could just like let you know like what you'd like to know or how I got into photography. I could give you like little blurb.
Yeah, can we start with that and let's just introduce our audience to you that way?
Yeah, that's fine. So my name's Ian Jones, obviously. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I live now. I've been here since 2007. I was actually born in Vegas, moved to upstate New York when I was like 3, and then I moved out to Pittsburgh when I was around like 22. My old roommate actually was into photography and he was going to college for it. And he had an old Canon T3i and he always tried to push me to use that. And I didn't want to. And one day he wasn't home and I took the camera and went out on my own and went downtown and started taking photos. And I got like a love for it that way on my own, I guess.
Yeah.
And taking pictures and editing, and I'm like really big into editing. I feel like that editing to me is the most exciting part of photography. So I guess I hate to say on a professional level, but I guess to say on a professional level, I may be doing photography for the past like 5 years.
Okay. Awesome. Well, and it's interesting because of how you phrased that, because you had someone who was like, hey, go do this, and then you were like, well, maybe I'll try it.
I hate when people are like, you have to do this, you have to try this. It's like you have to watch The Office so you don't watch The Office. You know what I mean? So that's why
I'll make that decision.
That's why I did it on my own when nobody was there, because learning a DSLR is hard. It's difficult, and I know what I want the camera to do, and I don't know how to make it do that, and it's very frustrating. And then nothing's worse than having someone over your shoulder telling you how to do something. So when you learn on your own, when you like learn on your own and teach yourself, there's more of a passion in it, I guess, if that makes sense.
That's fair. Yeah, that does make sense. I got my start in photography young. I was a photo assistant, and so I got this hands-on experience at an early age. And over the years, I've done photography, but I also teach photography, and there's just different approaches and all of that into getting started and learning and understanding that we all learn in different ways, and that curiosity to learn it on your own and experiment and try. I can totally relate to that idea of like it's there in your gut, it's in your soul, and you get to discover it on your own. So that's really awesome. So I'm going to remind everybody real quick. We really want to hear from you on this one, everybody. We want to hear your questions about the images, about process, like whatever comes to mind as we go through these slides. Ian's going to share work and tell stories behind the work. But we want to hear from you. We'd love for this to be a little bit interactive, so do not be shy with your questions. With that said, Ian, why don't we dive into the work and start sharing?
All right, so this is my like opening slide here at downtown Pittsburgh with Ian Jones. I have my Instagram handle down here, down at the bottom left, in case you guys want to check that out. So the first photo, I had a very hard time picking images for this because I feel like I have so many that I wanted to share. Um, but I like to call this one Hey Man. I also titled these as I was making the slide, so that was kind of fun for me as well. I shot this with a Tamron 2875. You'll see that I have these up in the top right. This was at 60 millimeters, the 5 stop at a 500 ISO. So I feel like when I go downtown looking for people to shoot, I kind of just like randomly I look for people who are smoking cigarettes. I know that's like a weird thing, but like when people are smoking cigarettes, I like love to take photos of them because like I said before, I like to edit. So I look at what the photo could be, not what it is at the time. So if you look at the photo of him, the cigarette smoke of him blowing out, I added that in. His cigarette smoke burning down by his hand, I added that in as well. I try to make an immersive experience for the viewer. So I want to take the images and make a story for the viewer. I want to bring them into it as much as possible. And I want my images to feel like you can reach out and like kind of touch them. So that's why I focus so much on everything else outside of just the photo, because I feel like you take the image, you take the photo, and there's so much more to be done in editing. That's where I feel like I really excel, is in the editing. So everything's crisp. You got the cigarette smoke. Your eyes just look all over, and you have the top right. You have the sun peeking out through. You have a little bit of dust behind him. To me, it's just layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of image. So I really like this photo. And this photo, actually, I was downtown with a group of guys and we were walking, and this man actually said, "Hey man," and he was asking my friends for change. And I had scoot to the other side and I took a photo of that interaction because at the time, like, he just looked like a very interesting dude. And I wanted to take his photo. And it turned out really well. And I really liked it. I usually shoot at 2.8, and this was at 5, and it just got the whole front of him was completely in focus. Um, I really gravitate to people that are wearing black leather jackets. Stuff like that works super well in editing, especially with like the highlights and like brushing those highlights out. So that's how I feel this image, and that was like the story about that one. So we're gonna go to the next one here. This is the all-seeing dog. I shot this with the 1728. This is at 17 millimeters. Now, this image to me is probably one of the top 5 images I took last year. My favorite time to shoot is during the winter when it's cold. I feel like my editing style, it's easier to edit how I edit when it's colder out or when it's winter. This man was walking and I saw the dog, and the first thing that I noticed was the dog's eyes. And it almost looks like the dog was completely blind, fully cataract over. And that's what drew my attention to him. So in the editing, I excelled the cataracts in the dog's eyes. I put a little soft vignette around the guy's head. His head is just like so sharp. And this man, just looking at this image, has a story. And I feel like it was just super captivating. And I actually asked him if I could take his photo, because I don't like to be that street photographer that like jumps down and gets into people's faces. And I do like to take candid photos, but this person specifically, I said, "Could I take your photo?" And if you look at the photo, what's in focus, I'm taking the picture of the dog. The guy just happened to be holding the dog because my focus in the beginning was the dog. And what drew me to this photo was the dog's eye. If you also notice, he's smoking a cigarette. Another one of my giveaways. I love to find people smoking. Also in the editing, I like to highlight streetlights. I like to put a little bit of dust in the background. Again, I just want to make this layer upon layer upon layer of an immersive for the viewer to see. And this is type of stuff that you don't really see like downtown, like Pittsburgh, if you were just like to walk around. So this one of my favorite images. And just looking at it now, I'm just noticing the dog's ears are super wild. So this is one of my top 5 favorite images. We'll go to the next one here. So this is a bus stop. Again, like I said, I like to shoot downtown when it's snowing. It allows for you to play more with the edit. Like you can add snow. The ground's usually wet. Again with the street lights. But I shot this with the 2875. It was at 35 millimeters with a 5 f-stop. What I did here is I added some more snow up at the top. There's more birds up in here. Again, it's just layer upon layer upon layer of an environment. Everything in this photo was there's snow added. There's highlights in the street lights, in the bus lights. I emphasize the highlights here on the ground where the headlights hit the wet ground here. There's actually added exhaust smoke in the back of the bus, like the birds up here, just layer on layer on layer. And that's what I look for. Like I said before, I try to see what the image can be at the end versus what it is. So when I go downtown, I typically either have my 2875, 70 to 180, or the 17 to 28. Those are my top 3 Tamron lenses that I use religiously. I have an assortment of Tamron lenses, but those 3 get used a ton. If I'm downtown shooting street, it's typically the 70 to 180 now, just because it's so crisp. It allows me to get into people's faces. It allows me to get more detail, and I could be back with more of a voyeur experience, I guess, for the viewer and for me as well. So I don't feel awkward and like right up in people's faces when I'm trying to take photos of them. So again, layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. Look at the next photo here. I call this the passerby. So this is also shot with the Tamron 2875. There is downtown, there's a hotel. I forget what the name is right now, but there is this vent in the sidewalk, and it just pumps up heat and pumps up smog, I guess if you want to call it. So it creates these billows of smoke. And that's an attractive place to take a photo of a person. It's just a very interesting thing. And so what I did is I hid back behind some cars, and I was just waiting for people to come out of the hotel and walk down the street. And this is a very basic photo. There wasn't really a lot of editing. The only thing I really did is I put a vignette around this person here. And if you're going to do vignettes, like if you're going to do that, make them so subtle that people don't know that you're doing them in the edit. There's nothing worse than the harsh oval that looks like an old 80s high school photo that you got at JCPenney's. So you just want to make that super smooth. And I actually blurred the background a little bit. And this is also like one of my favorite photos, and I wanted to put this in the slide here. It's just the focus is just like right in the center, and it kind of just like tells a story a little bit, but it's just very eerie, I guess. It's very
ethereal. I'll use Devin's word, ethereal.
Yeah, it's just very, I just like, I really like this photo, and the muted colors, it's just like one tone. And again, that was my editing style during the winter. So my editing changes from winter to fall to summer. I feel like everybody kind of has like a different thing. So
that makes sense. Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah. So actually a couple of questions. They're somewhat related. I came up with a question, and then we had someone ask one too. When you go out for the day, do you have a kind of a plan in mind? Do you know where you're going to go shoot, or is it more organic?
Downtown Pittsburgh's kind of very, I don't want to say it's very small, but it's not large. It's not New York City.
Right.
So basically I just kind of plan, let's say this Saturday I'm going downtown to shoot. I'm going to bring those 3 lenses I said, and I'm just going to walk around. And typically if you're downtown Pittsburgh, you could walk all around in like 2 or 3 hours. So it's a very easy walk. And do I have things planned? No, I never have anything planned. I just go down and I just like look for things that catch my eye and things I want to take photos of, and interesting people or interesting moments, or like the smoke coming out of the vent. You know, like you see that,
Right.
so you stay there for a little bit. So
Right.
never,
Well, and
it's
I think
there's
that's a
never a plan.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing you do like in New York, right? Because there's instances where there's smoke coming up from the vents in the ground in New
Yeah,
York out of the
it's
subways.
very
Yeah.
Ninja Turtle-esque.
Yeah. The I was gonna say like the one with the bus that you just shared,
Yeah,
you had because the ground is wet. I love the like the long lines of the headlamps and that you like got into that and intensified that a little bit more in your post production. I think you're
if
really
there's
right.
something I can see that could use enhancement, like I spend so much time on the edits. Like
Yeah.
that's my favorite part of
Well,
photography.
and that's part of your style and your creative process. A lot of people in this genre are not necessarily doing that. They kind of stay to this is more
Well,
straight out of camera kind of thing.
and that's the like I butt heads sometimes online with the purists, I guess.
Yeah.
So there's two different types of street photography. There's the purists that will not edit the photo whatsoever, and the photo is what it is. And then there's the type that will take the photos and they'll edit a little bit, and you know they'll make the photo look the best possible that it can and make it interesting. And I feel like there's a little bit of combativeness between the purists to kind of what I do, but
Right.
it's not like I'm taking a moon and pulling it down and putting it in a street, and it's I'm just intensifying it to make it more interesting and emphasizing elements that are already in the photo.
Yeah, you're enhancing that mood a little bit
Yeah,
more with different tones. And I love the fact that you're like adding snow and stuff like that. Even though the snow might be coming down, you're intensifying those layers
yeah,
that you talked about. So that's
because
really great.
yeah, yep.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's keep going. Keep
Okay.
those questions coming in and comments, everybody who's tuning in. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I mean, if okay, so this is also another top five photo. This is the cigar guy. I had my 20 millimeter at the time. So this is obviously shot at 20 millimeter, 2.8, and I had this was the ISO was cranked up. So usually when I shoot downtown, my ISO is at least 500, at least 500, 2.8. And the reason why I keep it so high, even if it's so bright, I keep my ISO high, and I always shoot at high plus with my Sony A7 III, so I could just like rattle off shots because I always look for motion. If there's a car flying by or if someone is running by, the last thing I ever want to do is miss something or take a photo of something and it's blurry. So I always prepare for what's coming if just in case something pops up. So I was down here in the strip district, and this guy was actually at a hot dog or a food truck right over here on the corner, and I saw this guy about to light a cigar, and I ran over to him and I said, "Hey," I said, I would love to take your photo of you lighting your cigar." And he was just like, "Sure," you know, he let me do it. So I got down, lined him up, rattled off some shots, and like in that shots, I had the flame coming up, and this is just a very basic shot. There wasn't really a lot of editing. The only thing I really did here was I just emphasized the car headlights in the background, added a little bit of haze to the road to make a more of an environment back there, because I feel like the environment up front was so intense. I also wanted a layers of something in the background too. So again, here you see he has a leather jacket. He's smoking with leather jackets that are black, especially. It allows you to hit these highlights all across the top, to bring that down, and like in the creases. Like every single highlight you see in his jacket, I hit with the highlight brush in Photoshop. I just wanted to bring that out because I wanted him to just come out of the image and have the background. So it's kind of like hard to explain, and it's kind of like a weird obsession where I want my images to be like, what's that the instrument where you bring it out and there's like different kind of things in there. You know what I'm talking about? I feel like Steve Urkel played the thing, like the piano thing.
Oh, the
That's how
accordion. Accordion.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I was like, what is he talking about? Devin's looking at me going, you know what he's talking
She's like,
about? And I'm
please,
like,
please, somebody tip in and help me. But if you could take the image and do this with it, open it up. I wanted to do that, and you could see
Yeah.
different types of things in each. So that's kind of where it starts at his hand, goes to the cigar, up to his face, down behind him, and then there's even stuff further. So this is one of my favorite images, just because, like I said before, I don't like to get this close to people and take their photo without their permission
Okay, so
because
that's
it.
what I was going to ask because I thought you said this when you started talking about this shot. So you're having a conversation with them, hey man, I like your jacket, or you look really cool.
Well, I
Um,
I I was getting a hot dog at the hot dog stand, and I
oh,
just looked over and I saw, I saw what he was about to
about,
do, and I was just like,
yeah,
done. I ran over there and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I take a
forget about
photo
the
of you
hot dog.
sparking up your cigar?" Yeah. And
Yeah,
if you don't look threatening, and if you seem nice, and a lot of people actually like to have a photo taken. It
yeah.
very rarely are people be like, no, 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 no. But I mean, this guy was cool. He was like Italian, just a real cool guy, and he said sure, and he loved it. And I
And
actually, the only bad thing about this is I don't know who this person is, and I'll never meet them again to give them the photo.
well, and that's what I was going to ask next was, do you show them the photo like this moment that you've captured at the time?
Sometimes I do. I can't remember or not if I showed this gentleman or
Okay.
not the photo, but and
Yeah.
also just looking, I don't think he has an Instagram. You know what I mean? I don't think
Right, right,
he's,
right. No,
you
and when you
know,
travel, like I'll take portraits like this when I travel, and you've got the language barrier. Like I have this amazing portrait of this kid and his dad. They speak Thai. I don't speak Thai. I all I could ever do was show them the photo. I
uh-huh.
couldn't get it to them digitally. I couldn't make a print for them, you know. So
Yeah,
that's why I asked the question, because sometimes there's a language barrier and sometimes it's just timing, you know.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. No, it's awesome. It's awesome.
All right, so we'll go on the next one here.
Yeah.
So this is called, I called this the bank just because we're at a bank here. And I recently, during this whole era of shooting here, I got the 17 to 28. So I was shooting with a ton. So this is at 17 millimeter because I wanted to be, as wide as possible. When I shoot with that 17 to 28, I hardly even like zoom in. It's always at 17 millimeters. 2.8, like I said, 640. Um, there's not like a ton of cool architecture in Pittsburgh, but there's what we do have here is very old, and it's like all stone, and like I don't want to get called out because I'm not like I don't study architecture, so I don't know what the correct words for these gargoyle things and the carvings and stuff like that. But there's really nothing special about this corner. But when you shoot up and wide, it just it just looks awesome to me. And this guy was like passing by, and that's just kind of like where I got that photo from because I knew in the edits and what I was doing at the time, I knew this building would look awesome. And if you actually look at this image up at the left and the right, you can see the Ave is kind of repeating. So what I did is I cut this building directly in half, copied and pasted and mirrored it. So I wanted a little bit of like Inception vibes up in the corners because the top right and top left at the time were not interesting. So if you see up at the right, you can see how it kind of glitches on the left and the right. And I wanted that to look like Inception-y, and that you're being sucked in. And the focal point is the guy walking, but I also wanted it to be interesting up here on the left and the right. So I don't know if you can see that, but that was like the story behind this one. But there's not an awesome story behind this, but I wanted to share this as well, just to share the blocks of the Inception thing that I had going in the background. If you can see that. Next one here. Um, so this is going to go into where I love to find motion in images, and I love to find action. And also it goes back to saying I always keep my ISO high in case things are happening. So I was just walking downtown, and again, you see I had the 1728, and this ambulance just zooms by, and I heard it coming, and I was already prepared for it because I, shoot high plus and just was just like rattled the entire time the ambulance passed. And this was the image that I got. Now, I took this photo, layered it up, blurred the background a little bit, add some motion blur, made the ambulance look like it was going faster than it was. And then I emphasized all the lights on the ambulance to make it pop out more and blurred the background. And one, two, three, four, all the lights in the back are also emphasized as well as the street lights. If you look at any of my photos on Instagram, anything that there's a street, if there's a street light or if there's a car headlight, if there's any light, you can almost guarantee that there's some type of flare in it, or it's brightened a little bit, or there's a little tiny lens flare. There's so much stuff in the images that you can't even see on Instagram. You have to zoom in like 300x on Photoshop to even see some of the details I put in these photos sometimes. But this photo was cool. I really liked it. The reason why you see my logo down here on the bottom is because the Pittsburgh Paramedic Rescue Ambulance actually asked if they could use this and post it on their things, which was pretty cool. So I asked them if I get priority, if I ever hurt myself, if they would come for me first over somebody else because of the photo.
Oh. Can I get some audio here for a second?
You're never prepared to get hurt, but if you do, I'd like to have them in my back pocket, you know.
Well, and it's good to have friends in those kinds of places for sure. And
Yeah.
I will say, I really am appreciating your editing style, because you really are bringing about a mood in your images that I think a lot of people don't always implement in a genre like this. Like you said, I think, yeah.
I feel like there's over editing and there's a little bit of editing, and I try to Photoshop and edit enough to where it looks natural still. But if you think about it, like, I don't want it to look just fake. Like, I want you to look at it and enjoy it, and then I don't want you to realize that it's Photoshop.
Right. Well, I mean, I can see like
stuff in there.
Right, but I can see the coolness that you're kind of bringing about in your images. And we tend to shoot warm. I know I tend to shoot warm. And we don't always think about color affecting the mood of a photo, but when we cool it down, it gives us that moody, wintry vibe that you're talking about, right?
I've always, for some reason, I've always gone cold. If it's downtown, if it's street, it's just always cold. It's always cold. So that's kind of where this editing style came from.
Well, and someone has asked about that. Could you talk a little bit about how you developed your editing style, and has it changed a lot over the time that you've been doing this? I'm sure the process has gotten more quick as we practice those tools.
So in the beginning, I feel, just as anybody using like Lightroom, there's so many sliders, there's so many buttons, there's so much stuff you could do, and it's just trial and error. It's really trial and error. And I remember being like fresh to the photography editing game. I would look at people's photos, I'm like, man, that looks like so awesome. Like, how did you even get to that point? And I have people DM me all the time. It's like, hey, how do you make that photo look like that? And now it's to the point where I've been editing so long that I make my own presets that I save for myself, and they're labeled all like weird random things. Like, for example, I have a preset that's called like light airy couple, and it's because I did an engagement shoot and I had 1,000 photos to edit, and I got the preset ready for one, and then I did that, and then they just went to all of them and they were all tweaked. So I'm to the point now where I have a downtown preset, a food preset, stuff like that, but it's all like saturations, highlights, shadows. I bring my shadows out a lot. All like shadows, I try to bring out a ton right before it gets like little grainy, and very muted colors and cold. Contrast is up, and it's just one of those things. It's just so hard to explain how you get from point A to point B in your editing style without doing it yourself and learning from other people. And I know, like, you could buy presets online. Absolutely. And I know people buy my presets here and there, and they think that's the end all be all. But even presets still need to be tweaked per
Right.
photo, per
They
your
can be a
editing
good
style,
starting
per the
point.
image. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's
Even in
it's a good
Lightroom,
it's a good starting point.
yeah, even in Lightroom now, the presets that were there, say 3 or 5 years ago, I didn't really use, but
Yeah.
now they've been changed, and there's a couple that I'm like, oh, I like that, and I'll
Mhm.
start with that and then tweak it to kind of get to what I like. And I think in editing
All
in
the pictures
general,
are
it's
different.
about that. Exactly. Every photo has different elements or tones. So starting with one point and then experimenting. And I think your style develops and changes over the years as well.
Yeah. Now,
I know for me
where
it
I'm at
does.
now, I still go back to this look, and I will go back to this look 100% once winter hits again.
Yeah.
But like I said, my editing style develops and changes through winter, through the different seasons. So because this look right here is hard to get in the summertime because the ground's not wet. It's not cold. There's not like snow elements, and so and also as a viewer, I like I do marketing and stuff on the side too. So I know people want to see warmer images when it's summer, and it just kind of like it
Right.
just all makes sense. So we'll go to the next one
Yeah.
here.
Cool.
I call this one Mercedes-Benz. I was going through this phase again, trying to catch motion, making things look more exciting than they actually are. So this is just a photo, and this car was just kind of rolling through the intersection, but I made it look like it was going faster. Added some fog in the road, touched up the highlights, the street lights, added some motion blur. And this was kind of like in the beginning of doing this with vehicles. So personally, I think this isn't as good as they are now, but I still wanted to show this photo because this is where I started kind of doing it. Um, what I liked about this photo is the highlights on the hood and that streak of highlight going up the windshield. And it just, there's not really much to this photo, but I really enjoyed it and I really like this picture. And I tried like hell to get Mercedes' attention on this post. So, and I think it might be this one or one before, but they actually liked it, but they didn't comment on it. So I'll take that as a win, I guess. But like that, yeah. So I like to do motion, little motion blur here. I just wanted to look like the car was speeding towards you. And a lot of my images, if you notice, whatever is dead center in the photo is always like tack sharp. There's always something tack sharp in the exact center of my images. So if you ever go through my Instagram feed, look at my photos, 9 times out of 10, whatever is in the center is always tack sharp. And I have an obsession with that. It's never not going to be. Downtown, I called this one the Skater, and I did a little shout out to Avril Lavigne here by calling Skater with an 8. I wanted to call this Skater Boy, but it messed up the center of it. So I'm just going to tell you, I wanted to call this Skater Boy. I had the 2875 here. I shot this at 33 millimeter. This dude here on the skateboard, his name's Zach. He's actually a local photographer too. I tried the same technique on him as I do with vehicles. Again, I completely cut him out of the photo, pasted him back in another layer, blurred the background, made him look like he was going faster than he was. His left foot's blurred a little bit to show that he was kind of kicking motion. If you look at his phone, it's tack sharp. You could actually see the image on it, and his face is tack sharp too. And that goes again to my obsession with having things centered and tack sharp there too. So we were just walking downtown, and I heard the like off the like skateboard wheels, and there was like 8 dudes coming down the road, and he got close to me, and he just looked the most interesting, and I just got him right off the bat, and I was stoked with this shot, and I like wanted to go home immediately and edit this photo. So if ever I go out shooting and I get like the shot that I know is the best shot of the day, I just like want to go. I'm like, all right, I need to go home. I need to edit this. I need to post this immediately. Also, again, street lights. You got your little lens blur up there in the street lights. Everything's fine up there too. So again, this goes to all of my other previous editing style in this time frame. So you'll see very similar things, very similar editing techniques throughout these images. Called this parking garage. I had the 1728 again. nothing crazy about this image, but we have a spiral parking garage in downtown. It's right next to Wiener World, which is kind of funny because it's, if you remember, it's like an old Nickelodeon show, I think, with like Stickly and stuff like that. So that's always what I think about when I'm up there. But if you look again, taxi, dead center, tack sharp. And I always like those shots that people do of like up above coming across the crosswalks. So what made me interested about this photo is the crosswalks here. And I was up there for a little bit and I wanted to get a taxi or a car right on that crosswalk to make that white go across the windshield whenever the reflection hit off that car. So I was up there for a while. And again, if you were on Photoshop and you were able to zoom in, this car behind the taxi, its headlights are edited. It's got light coming up. The highlights are popped on that too. I edit so much. I also clean up trash from the road too, but I also leave some trash there so it looks a little bit natural. It's just I'm so much obsessed in the edits. It's just like really fun for me to do that. So do this one. I call this one Batman for just because this photo had a real Gotham vibe to it. And if you look, the guy has a leather jacket, so I was able to mess with the highlights here. We're actually just walking by this church downtown, and this man just happened to be standing here, and he was just like looking straight. And to me, I love the shot because it was perfect. It's centered. I'm really obsessed with things being centered, symmetrical. I really love design. So if things are uneven, I can't stand it. So this image was awesome to me. So it was just like him in the middle. You got two pillars of the church going up, and he's just smack dab right in the middle, and he's looking off. So I had a lot of fun editing this. This is darker than the other images before, but I was able to really hit these highlights, and especially on his leather jacket and stuff like this. I really didn't do too much to this photo other than the edit. But again, if you look smack dab, everything's just tack sharp right there in the middle. And again, that was with the 17 to 28, and I was at 17 millimeter because whenever I have that lens, I just shoot as wide open as possible. Again, a guy smoking. This is like a really fun photo for me because I had a 70 to 180 in this. And typically when someone's up this close, I have to like back up a little bit, but we're just walking and this guy's like, hey, you guys photographers or whatever. And I said, yeah. And he goes, take my picture. I was like, all right. Then I asked him, I said, get a big puff of smoke, just puff on that cigarette and just get a big puff of smoke out. And he just stood there with like such an awesome stance, and he blew out cigarette smoke. And I mean, to me, it's just an awesome photo because there's not a lot of editing to this picture. Like not a lot of like extreme Photoshop editing to this picture. I did add a little bit more cigarette smoke to emphasize it coming out of his nose and his mouth here. I did hit the lights in the parking garage. I cleaned up his sweater a little bit. And what I did is I zoomed in to his eyeballs and I added shine into his eyes to bring more of like a life to the image. So if you're looking at this full resolution, zoomed in, it looks like he's alive living in your screen. And I want to say it's because that I added the shine in his eyes. And to me, that was just like my favorite part of just adding that shine in his eye. It just gives it wetness to the eyes and it gives life to the image. So, and I shot that at 5.6 because I wanted he has a very interesting hoodie on there. So I wanted his whole front there to be in focus. So I don't know. I just really like that photo. This is also another really fun image of mine, and there's a cool story behind this. I call this an angry man, and he may not be particularly angry, but he looks like he's on a mission. But he also looks like, a lot of people said he looked like Chris Evans, like a Captain America type, like attractive dude getting off the bus with his headphones on. His hair is all nicely pushed over, and I was hiding behind. I wasn't really hiding, but I was back behind like a light post, I guess, in your trash can. And I was getting people coming off the bus stop here, and he just looked interesting. I rattled off a couple of shots of him, and it just turned out super awesome to me. I added more snow here. I added some smoke here to look like it's like a cold fog up in the top right. And I had a really awesome caption with this photo because going back to previous photos, I hate taking awesome images of people and not being able to find that person or know who they are. So I asked my followers and people in Pittsburgh, like, hey, share this photo. Do you know who this guy is? Like, maybe we can find him. I'll print this photo out and frame it and give it to him for free. Because if that was me, I would love, I mean, that's a badass picture of myself. I would love to have that in my house. But to no avail, nobody found who he was. But it's just, his coat's awesome. He's just very interesting. And I like it if you look in front of him, you have a woman here with her scarf, her whole head's covered. And then behind him,
Yep.
you have another woman with a scarf and her face is covered. It's just, again, like trash can layer, her layer, him a layer, that sign layer, smoke layer, and then it just snows like the last final season to that photo. So
Well, and I did find it interesting that in front of and behind him were people who were like super bundled up, and his hood's
yeah.
down, his jacket's open. It's like the cold doesn't bother him, even though he appears to be,
Yeah.
something serious is happening.
And the thing with that, it's like there's some people will probably tell you, I sat there for 4 hours and I planned this shot out. Like, no, you didn't. Like, I did not plan for that woman to be like that. And I didn't plan for that woman to be back there. And I didn't plan for him to come out. It's just, I saw what this shot could be. And I just waited for somebody interesting to come out. And I'm not the type of, I'm not going to sit there for 20 minutes and wait for something. I'm not going to sit there for 10 minutes. I'm going to wait for a little bit. And if nothing happens, I'm going to the next. I'm going to continue to walk. Like
Right.
because if I sit there for so long, I feel like I'm missing something elsewhere. And like
Right,
I said, Pittsburgh's small enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you sit there, you get it framed up. You're like, okay, I'm going to wait here for a minute. I love to do that in New York as well.
Yeah.
I find an intersection, I kind of hang out for like 5 or 10 minutes and see all the different stories that happen in that time. One person's asking about the smoke up in the top right corner there.
Okay.
Is that something that was part of the shot, or did you add that in?
All this smoke up there, I added that in.
Okay. Awesome.
Because at the time, if you see this sign, it was a very sharp, it looked like a Tetris piece. And that my eye was always drawn to that sharp corner. So I wanted to make it look like it was kind of oozing into the image more, which brought the smoke in. And if I'm shooting in the winter, there's going to be smoke, there's going to be snow, there's going to be some type of lens flare. So that's just a given. So it's just my eye or my desire to find the perfect spot to place it. Because going back, like I said, it just makes for a better image.
So let me ask you a kind of a follow-up question.
Okay.
When you're out doing photography, when you're out taking these photos, are you capturing those elements that kind of like creating a little catalog of pieces and parts that you can add in to these other images?
I do that a lot with birds
and
pigeons. I have images I reference back to, but now in any day and age, you have a brush in Photoshop for anything. So
Fair.
I have my own brushes for like snow and smoke and lens flares that I keep in an editing file. So some things I pull from other images, some things are just all digital.
I figured I'd ask because I was just curious, because I have a couple of friends out there that do a fair bit of compositing, and they'll shoot kind of plates and like overcast clouds and then the white puffy clouds so that they have that. And of course now our software just have like background replacement options that weren't there a year ago. So
Photoshop and stuff is just getting so good to where you could do anything you want. You know what I mean? You could just do whatever.
Yeah.
I actually had this idea. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say we're at just over a quarter till, so it's like we have about 10 to 15 minutes left. But go ahead with what you were going to say.
We'll zoom through these.
Yeah.
I really hate doing lookups, but we have, like I said, we have like a lot of like cool architecture here, and this building downtown is just, with my editing style in the winter, this just to me just looks like an evil type building, and it stands like super tall, and the metal is just like smooth, and it is sheen, and it just looks sleek, and I'm just always drawn to this building, and this building's like photographed like a ton. So I mean, you'll see this all over Pittsburgh if you look at anything like that. But this is 1728 again. Same kind of, this is the same building, just a different side of it. So I mean, again, but I like how you have the sky and the highlights. It kind of pours down into the highlights of the building. So I wanted to make that look like it was cutting through the clouds. And I actually added a layer of clouds halfway down in the building to look like it was taller than it was. Same thing. I wanted to put like a clump of these like lookups. This building is a United Steelworkers building. There's a lot of trees here to the left, which kind of like overgrow and ruin the image. So I just cut it down the middle, copied, pasted, mirrored it, so it could have like one solid edit here. And if I wanted to be super cliche, I could have put some airplanes in the sky, but I wanted to focus on the building. And again, dead center focus, that little point right there is just one of my favorite photos. I love it. I wanted to add these things into just kind of elements that you find when you're walking downtown, just things that you could find to see to make an interesting photo. And you've all seen this photo. You've all seen people take photo of the lens with the phone and the reflection, but I kind of wanted to do my own. And if you look again, you can see like the lens flares, like the oversaturated, the lens here. And I think that lens is the 20-75, and I shot it with a 70-28. So this is actually an LED board to like a strip club, I think, or like a cabaret bar downtown. I call this the spiral steps. I had the 28-75 with this, and this staircase is only really, I think I want to say maybe like 8 or 9, 10 flights, but I photoshopped to make it look like it was like much more. And I brought in light and sun and dust on this like lower level, just try to make it more interesting, because a lot of people photograph these steps, but I wanted to do it like my way and make it mine and kind of like put my stamp on it. This is a subway downtown. Again, I really like symmetry and leading lines, and this like blue with orange, like a warm image down here at the bottom, but cold up top. And the image just kind of like leads you down these steps. Again, with the 17-28. And this is, I actually have this printed in my house. I think I have this printed at like a 30-by-50. It's in my basement. It's one of my favorite images. Again, I'm right dead center in the middle of the road, shot with the 17-28, and I added some snow, lens flares, headlights, the typical Ian Jones downtown winter scene to me. I feel like this is my stamp of my photography here. This is another thing I like to do, and a lot of people do as well, and it's super easy when you have a 17-28. I like to do interior shots when I'm in a car. Make it seem like you're in the car, you're showing people what you're doing, or you're like, oh, I'm downtown shooting, I'm gonna take a photo of this. But this just happened to be, I really like this photo, and this made it to my Instagram grid, and this was just like a fun shot, just fun, clean, nothing crazy, but it's still interesting. And again, cold, tail lights are emphasized, and the highlights and everything's in focus right in the center. This is my sister-in-law, and I really like this image because when she was walking by, her sunglasses with hitting that like push of light on the side of that wall, and I edited it the same as I typically do, but I warmed this up a little bit just because I feel like she has a warm personality, and I didn't want it to look cold. And also, sometimes when you're shooting, sometimes when you edit in the style that I edit, skin tones look unnatural, and I didn't want her skin tone to look completely unnatural. So I just like warmed this shot up a little bit. And if you notice, I call this interior because I copied and pasted from the last slide and I didn't change the title. This is also something I wanted to put in here because I figured it was like going to be at the end. It's not necessarily a street photo, but it's a picture that I'm like super proud of. And I did it a long time ago and I wanted to just share this again. I call this a GTA experience when I was playing Grand Theft Auto 5. I hooked this up with like strings and a broom mop handle, and everything in this photo is real except the glass. You have the smoke. I had actually my wife blow smoke and blow flour, and I had the disc up here floating. And it's just, I just really wanted to show this image, so I snuck this in there for you.
That's really cool, and we got some good feedback in the audience there.
Okay, cool. I actually sent this to Rockstar. I sent it everywhere. I sent it to Xbox. Nobody cared about it. So I was like super upset about it. Thank you. But I mean, yes. it's one of my favorite images, and it's one of my favorite shots that I've done. And this is the last, I think. Yeah, this is the last image I have in here too.
That's really cool.
This is also, again, GTA experience. It should be called something else, but I copied and pasted this slide.
It's okay.
I was drinking whiskey with this, and again, I like to mess with motion. And I was pushing the cut back and forth to get that like splash out of there, and then it looked like a hand. So I just like kept going with it, and I kept going with it and kept going with it and kept going with it till I got this photo. And I actually called this photo the creation of whiskey, because you know that picture of like, is it Adam and what's the creation picture? You know what I'm talking about? Anybody?
Adam and Eve.
Not Adam and Eve, but it's the creation of man where they touch fingers.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but I know what you mean.
That's kind of like what I was going with that photo. So that's also like one of my top 10 picks. And it was just like an accident kind of, because I wasn't even expecting to do that. I wasn't really expecting to take a photo of that at the time, but that's
right. But that splash is really awesome.
Yeah. And then I have a questions slide, and then I have this. These are all the three elements of me: sitting,
awesome,
drinking whiskey, and on my phone.
I know that social media life, right?
I know.
Okay, awesome. I do have one last question.
Okay.
Our friend in France, Adam and God by Michelangelo at the Sistine Chapel.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
See, okay, I knew what you're talking about.
Somebody from France would know the answer to that.
Yes. All right. So one person commented and that you do a lot of vertical. Is that personal style choice? Is that because of potential editorial use in magazines?
I shoot vertical solely for the reason for Instagram posting.
Okay.
I will. So now it's just a habit to do that. Like I can't break free from it. But when I shoot vertical allows me to do full resolution in Instagram stories. It also allows me to have full resolution for an Instagram portrait mode post.
Yeah.
So it's just ingrained in that. If I shoot a photo, it's just going that way. And that's it's for Instagram purpose.
Right. Well, and I do like to encourage people to try both ways, landscape and portrait mode, just for that variety.
Yeah.
But that's totally a fair point.
I just hate shooting landscape. And if I have good landscape photos, but if you post a landscape photo on Instagram, it's so small and you can't utilize all the, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's, again, that social media game we've got to play, right?
You have to.
You have to. Okay. Janet with Tamron also is saying hello. She's in the YouTube chat with us.
Oh, hey. Hey, Janet.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, that was awesome. If anybody has like maybe one last question, we have a little bit of time and we could knock that out. But while we're waiting to see if anybody does, I want to thank you. That was really awesome. Your work is super inspiring. And the funny thing is, I'm about to go lead a photo walk and we're going to be shooting downtown Seattle. So I'm going to be refreshed. I mean,
that would be I would love to go be plopped into a city I've never been to before and just walk around and find stuff, because now it's like getting to the point where I hate shooting downtown stuff because Pittsburgh is so I've done it, been it, you know what I mean? So now I'm just looking for
Yeah.
interesting people. So
Right.
traveling would be awesome, and taking photos of different cities and different downtown activity would be
We're getting
awesome.
there. We're getting there. The world, we're starting to reopen the world. We're
I
getting
know it
there.
would be
And you're
awesome.
welcome to
And if
Seattle
and
anytime. When you want to come
if
out
Tamron
here, we'll go out.
if 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 Tamron's watching,
And
send me
Tamron
to
is
any
watching.
city, send me to any city, anytime, any weekend, and I'll do it. I'll do it. Just send me there.
Ben just said as soon as we can make it happen, we will.
I
And we're
got you.
happy to
No,
have
that's
you out
cool.
here in Seattle. So,
No, Seattle would be
because
an
I
awesome
face the
city.
same thing. I am out taking photographs in Seattle all the time, and I'm in that same situation. How many times can I go to Pike Place Market? How many times can I go to the waterfront? And I'm about
Yeah.
to do it again. So, all right. So we are going to need to wrap this up, unfortunately. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. Our friend and friends, Volana, is asking about, you said you went out with 3 lenses, and so you'll change those up as you need it. What are those lenses again?
It's 28 to 75, the 70 to 180, and the 17 to 28. And
Okay.
since getting the 70 to 180, I don't use the 28 to 75 downtown anymore. So it's only the 17 to 28 and 70 to 180. So it's only those two, because the 70 to 180, I feel like, is the 28 to 75's bigger, better brother
Gotcha.
to me. So I don't even touch the 2875 anymore when going downtown.
Okay. Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, Ian. It's been really great to meet you, see your work, and hear
You too. Thank
about
you.
your process and stories. And, you know, Ben and I are always doing programming up here. We are super excited about the possibilities of having someone like you come out and doing a little tour around Seattle and seeing what we could come up with.
That'd be awesome, as long as it doesn't
Yeah.
rain.
Well, that's the thing, you know.
How tired are you of that joke?
Yeah, I know. So it's like every time. But, you know,
Yeah.
I actually don't let that stop me, you know, unless there's like really bad rainstorm.
Yeah.
You can't let it stop you because then you'd never go out and shoot. So,
It's true.
you know.
It's true.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone who's tuning in, thank you so much for joining us. Ian, everybody from Tamron who helped make this happen, thank you. We have just one more day of Photofest. Again, there are sales happening in store and online. We have 2 live broadcasts tomorrow. So check out the website, glazersphotofest.com. Tune in for those sessions tomorrow. One is with Canon and one is with Leica. Everybody have a great Saturday afternoon, evening, wherever you are, or maybe it's Sunday where you are. And Ian, thank you again. That was really awesome. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.